Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because the kind of practical, hard-earned survival knowledge you'll learn here isn't found in your average history video. Today, we're going to explore shelters not from a textbook perspective, but through the eyes of soldiers who endured freezing snow, relentless rain, and mud-choked battlefields. These are the methods that kept men alive when conditions were at their worst, and you can take cues from them even today for camping, survival training, or historical reenactments. The first hack involves turning natural terrain into protective cover. Soldiers in the winter campaigns of the Eastern Front often use snowbanks, ditches, and fallen tree lines as the base for temporary shelters. The idea was simple. Use what's already there to block wind and moisture. For instance, carving out a snow trench and then covering it with branches and a tarpaulin or blanket created a windbreak and provided insulation from the frozen ground. If you were to recreate this in practice, start by scouting for elevated areas or natural depressions where water won't pool. Dig a shallow trench if the ground is soft or snow is abundant, and lay down a waterproof layer before covering with natural debris. It's the same principle soldiers used, but with modern waterproof fabrics you can make it even more effective. Next, let's examine improvised roofs using scavenged materials. Rain was one of the biggest killers in prolonged campaigns, especially in the muddy trenches of Western Europe during spring. Soldiers didn't have time for full-scale constructions, so they improvised. Wooden crates, canvas from abandoned supply dumps, and even metal sheets were repurposed into makeshift roofs over dugouts. The key was creating a slope for water to run off, preventing pooling that would seep through. To apply this technique today, if you're caught in a downpour while hiking or camping, gather lightweight materials, sticks, tarps, or even backpack rain covers, and arrange them at an angle over your sleeping area. This is the same principle German and Allied soldiers used when they needed a dry place in the mud. Another lesser-known method was elevating the sleeping area to avoid moisture and cold from the ground. In swampy or rain-soaked terrain, soldiers discovered that even a few inches off the ground could make a significant difference. Logs, planks, or even stacked sandbags turned a trench floor into a raised platform. Not only did this reduce exposure to dampness, but it also minimized contact with insects and vermin, a constant problem in prolonged campaigns. Practically, if you're building a temporary shelter in wet conditions, gather any available rigid materials to create a base for your bedding. Even a small layer of insulation, dry branches, leaves, or military-style sleeping pads mimics the soldier's method and significantly improves comfort and survival chances. One of the most ingenious hacks was using fire and smoke strategically. Soldiers didn't just build fires for warmth, they often used them to improve shelter conditions. A small, controlled fire inside a dugout or near the entrance could dry clothes and sleeping materials overnight, preventing hypothermia from wet clothing. At the same time, smoke was used in some cases to repel insects or mask positions from enemy scouts. Today, recreating this requires care, but the principle holds. A carefully managed heat source near, but not inside, a temporary shelter can make life significantly more tolerable in wet, cold environments. Always consider ventilation and fire safety, which soldiers learned the hard way during campaigns in dense forests or trenches. Finally, camouflage and concealment were part of survival as much as shelter. Soldiers understood that a well-hidden shelter reduced enemy detection and often meant the difference between life and death. Mud, foliage and snow were used not only to insulate, but to make shelters blend with the surroundings. In practice, if you're in a snowy or forested environment, integrate your materials into the terrain. Cover any tarps or structures with snow or leaves to break outlines. This principle has modern applications in tactical camping, survival exercises, and even historical reenactments, where authenticity is key. What makes these 5 hacks truly remarkable is their adaptability. Soldiers didn't have access to today's ultralight tents or synthetic sleeping bags. They relied on resourcefulness, observation, and understanding of the environment. By studying these methods, you're not just learning history, you're gaining actionable survival skills that work in any severe outdoor condition. You can practice by building a snow trench or a mud shelter, experimenting with elevation and roofing, and observing how fire and camouflage improve comfort and safety. These aren't just stories, they are tested techniques that ensured survival when the odds were against soldiers. If you found this dive into practical WWII soldier survival techniques valuable, make sure to subscribe to Atten Recounts for more insights that go beyond surface-level history. Share this video with fellow history enthusiasts or anyone interested in survival tactics. They'll thank you when they're applying these techniques in the field or at home. Knowledge like this is meant to be passed on. And by subscribing and sharing, you're keeping these lessons alive for future generations.